What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Coon here, host, back with another episode down on the corner of Southwest 24th Street and Robinson at Capitol CoOp. Wonderful new coffee shop in Oklahoma City, but the owner of this coffee shop you will know because he's been around a while. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to the podcast Mr. Chad Hodges.
How's it going, Mike?
Doing well, mate. Doing well. Excited to be here finally. Just see the space. I know it's been a long time coming, and there's a lot of things of business ownership that you probably didn't think would happen, but has happened, and just the build out of a new building and all, of an existing building and all the stuff that's gone on, with this coffee shop. You got currently having some cool stuff painted on the front window out here, which is really nice. You got a great looking building. People will know it when they drive by here, and I hope this serves as a reason for people to come down to this part of the city, because this is a cool part of the city.
This is a great part of the city,
right?
Like, we're super stoked to be part of the foundation of the new businesses going in Capitol Hill. It's real exciting. The neighbors are great. And it's been fantastic to get to be part of this neighborhood.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we met when you were over at Wheeler on Spoke Street.
Yeah.
Do you still have the spot there as well?
We still have the Fit Studio over there.
Yeah. So we met, I think probably I'd shown up to one of the crit races just to watch with my dog, and we met there. But take us way back. Where does Oklahoma and life start for you? Were you born and raised here?
Yeah, I was born in Shawnee.
Okay.
Eventually, my grandfather bought some land out in Norman. My folks moved there when I was really young, built a house. And so, yeah, I've spent my whole life in Oklahoma. My folks still live out in Norman. I currently live in Moore, but spend most of my time downtown. Since 2012 or so, I would say a majority of my time has been somewhere downtown Oklahoma City.
So with kind of that backstory then, did you generally grow up outside?
Oh, for sure.
In the countryside,
no, for sure.
Around, doing things?
We were building forts and digging ditches, and my grandfather was really into horses and stuff, so he spent a lot of time stringing fence and hauling hay and stuff like that.
Yeah. Looking back at that kid now, do you ever think you'd be here today?
No. I mean, there's lots of things that I've done since then that I never thought I would have a coffee shop or a bike shop, or I also have a commercial paint company. I would have never thought that I would have that either.
Yeah. So is it like most kids, when you grow up, you're just riding bikes, running around? Like, that's kind of the bike journey for you as a kid?
No, actually, I found cycling pretty late.
Okay.
I got into it a little bit, early college days, mountain biking, and did it for a couple of years, and then kind of put the bike away for a little bit. And then about my mid to late 20s, started really missing riding. And so I bought a road bike from Schlegel's when Schlegel had a shop on the south side. And then the rest, I guess, is history. I sort of just fell in love with it, and met some great people. I rode with an organization out of Norman for a while.
Yeah.
And then a new shop opened downtown, and I had the opportunity to help him kind of put together a cycling team for his shop. And then eventually from that came DNA Racing. And then we just kind of have tried to be as involved as possible ever since.
Yeah, so you've really been in the scene since it was kind of developed and evolved then over the years, right?
Yeah,
so it seems
for sure.
like it's really become something now, and cycling in Oklahoma City is it's well known.
Yeah, it is for sure. It's been great. And as DNA has kind of developed, it's been cool to sit down. I've had the opportunity to sit down with the city a couple times to talk about infrastructure, or to visit with the Wheeler district about how to make their roads, or where to put cobbles, or just odd and things like that.
Yeah, stuff that you never thought you'd be in a room with.
No, and some of it you don't even really
Yeah.
I don't know, other than from riding a bike.
Yeah, but they need that insight. You're right. When you think about putting cobbles and curbs and all the other things,
right?
And you're gonna want to. It's not just. And I love the way that kind of Wheeler was built, because Wheeler is built in a way that kind of makes me feel like back home. Whereas it's like a walkable community with shops and everything. It's not like out in Oklahoma you jump in your car to go everywhere.
Right.
Right. But if you think about riding bikes, and it taps into the city's kind of trail system and all the other cool things. It's just a great spot, and I wish we had more of it.
Yeah, for sure. Wheeler is fantastic.
Yeah. So before, and for people listening, like we are recording live in the coffee shop today. So if you hear people ordering their lattes, I apologize, but we are here, and it gives you a background noise, and I love it. Secretly, I really enjoy this stuff rather than sitting in a quiet boardroom where I do most of my podcast. But yeah, so we're down here at Capitol CoOp. Go to the social medias, which is in the show notes, and check it out. And if you want to buy a bike, you can definitely swing by as well and have a latte while you do it. And so, backing up then, when you're a kid running around, what do you think you're going to be when you grow up? Like you mentioned a commercial paint company. Were you kind of handy? Did you go to school, like meaning college? Like do you think like I'm going to go to college and be one of those kids, or do you go, straight into work?
No, so I grew up in a construction family. So my grandfather had a construction company, my dad had a construction company, and eventually, like, I did go to school, and I went, went to OU for a little while for construction science, and then you kind of run out of all the classes you can take in the evening, and you've got to switch everything to the daytime. But that wasn't really like. I couldn't really swing that from my lifestyle. Like I had to still make some money. So eventually, our construction company was subbing our paint work to a paint contractor, and they were looking to branch off into an 8A company. And they reached out and were like, "Hey, you want a job?" And so I kind of jumped ship for a minute, went to work for them, and then eventually just started my own company. More so out of necessity than just a desire, but it's been good.
Yeah. So that makes this whole process a little easier then with your background.
Oh, for sure.
Kind of putting it all together. And because a lot of, new business owners or business owners wanting to open up a coffee shop might think, I know it costs a lot more money to open up a space when you've got to pay real, proper construction prices.
Right.
Like, all of it, so you're doing it. It'll probably done a lot of the work yourself, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
to take on a project like this.
It's been cool. And this is still like the bike shop and the coffee shop for sure is the passion project.
Yeah.
The paint company is how I pay the bills. But hopefully, over time, everything's kind of like holding its own.
Yeah. So let's go to that road bike moment then. You buy a road bike, you get into cycling. You're working, you're doing construction, you got a paint company. It seems like you mentioned just then passion is the cycling side of things.
Oh, for sure.
And you get hooked and addicted and dive all in. Let's talk about that. Like just the passion, the cycling, the love for it, where it's taken you.
Yeah, I think the great thing about a bike is similar to the coffee shop is that, they're really kind of just tools, to a conversation or to helping to build, or be involved in a community. I don't know, for me it was riding my bike is super cool, getting to see places you're not going to see in your car, but more so is just the relationships I kind of built and found along the way.
Mm-hmm. When does it the competitive side of you come in and you think, because it's great to ride a bike and ride around the trails in Oklahoma City and like I said, a tool to get around, but then there's some side of competition inside you that's I want to stand on a podium now.
Oh no, for sure. Back when I first started riding on the road, Redbud had a road race. Mm-hmm. And I had ridden with some guys out of Norman long enough to think, I'm probably pretty okay. And I go do that race, and I'm the legit very last person to finish. And after that, I was like, all right, never again. You've got to kind of really start focusing if you want to do anything with it. And I still would say I'm probably not. I'm not good, but I'm average, and I have a good time with it. And we have some great buddies that are a lot of fun to ride with. So it keeps you going out, pushing the pedals, and just having fun.
Yeah. Did the cycling community that you get into and the friends that you built, does that kind of help the construction business? Not intentionally, but then help your business as far as hey, we need a paint guy, and Chad's the guy we cycle with.
Not
so much.
Most of the stuff that we do is commercial work.
Got you.
Occasionally we'll do something residential-wise for our buddies. But we don't really seek it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's one of the things I when you get into sport communities, whether it's golf, whether it's cycling, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, generally it helps your business as well.
Right.
So, and in certain ways, but
I mean, I am hoping it helps the coffee shop.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, we know a lot of the same people, and every time I see a post about this place, it's like someone is down here, and Bobby was down here a couple of weeks ago, right? And someone who's obviously huge in the cycling space as well, and part of the community. But so you enter the Redbird, you get that first taste of competition. You said you finished last.
Yeah.
Like I can't be doing this. Like I gotta kick it in.
For sure.
You start pounding the miles away then, and just kind of improving.
Yeah, and then like as I kind of like cycling, you go like Cat 5, Cat 4, Cat 3. Like the more you ride, the longer you ride. Like the lower the cat, like higher category, but it's a lower number. As I was moving up, like my wife and I, we had our first daughter, and so when that time came, my wife was working overnights then, and so I was a person who would stay home and then take Addison to daycare in the mornings. And I didn't really have time to ride outside. So what I would do most mornings is get up at like, depending on what time I needed to get my workout in, is get up at like 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning. And I would go out in the garage and I had my bike set up on a trainer. This was before you had smart trainers, before flat screen TV. So there's a big tube TV out there you have with a DVD player or maybe a VHS player. And you throw some like Tour de France recap on. And I would just sit there and do my workout from like 3 to 5 or 4 to 5. Go get ready. And you're just like sitting on your trainer and you got your like iPod on and you got your baby monitor right beside you. So you're just watching to see if those lights start pinging. But most of my miles for a long time, for probably 4 years, I would say at least 75% of my miles came from a trainer.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy how the training world is now, right? You have like
for sure.
Virtual cycling
now
and all this.
Now it's fun.
Is it Zwift? Is that right? Zwift, the whole thing, and there's like leagues and teams. And,
right.
I mean, it's like video games.
And you're on a
cycling.
smart trainer that's like controlling everything for you. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. It's so that moment then, like I said, you have your first daughter, Addison, and you're training when you can. But clearly, if you're getting up that early in the morning, like this is your passion, right? Like people don't get out of bed at 3 o'clock to ride for an hour to work out. This is the thing for you.
Yeah, I kind of have a problem doing things like halfway. Like I need to just be all in, and I need like multiple things to do.
Mm-hmm. Let's go then. You mentioned DNA racing. How does that like you get into racing and you kind of how does that come about?
So like 2009. Or so, me and some buddies were sitting around and just kind of tossing the idea around of like we should start our own cycling team. And so we do, and at the time it's like 7 people. And at first it was more of like we just want to race, just ride bikes. And then over the next like 3 years, it became more of like how can we do more for the community. And so that same group of guys, we started the Oklahoma City Pro-Am Classic. Which was a crit race in downtown Oklahoma City, and started as a one-day event. And then the next year was 2, and then we grew it to 3. But that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, and like our first 2 years, like all we had was the team. So like we had 7 people who basically would set everything up, race, and then starting at like 11 o'clock at night, you'd start tearing everything down. Like I remember being like in the back of a truck at like 4 in the morning, loading barricades to get them off of the road. And the first year the second day we hosted a race in Moore. And I basically at like 4 in the morning, you're wrapping up, drive home, sleep for an hour, get up, go straight to the other one to help set that race up. And then over the next few years, we hooked up with Harvey Cobbs from Modern Environment. He owns a landscape company. And we were able to like talk him into like being our barricade crew. And so he would come out with all his guys and volunteers and all their trucks and trailers. And as soon as the last race was over, they would like start tearing everything down. And that like Pro-Am became like a super well-oiled machine when that happened. And we ran that from 2012 until COVID.
Was that the one that was in there? There was a closed Midtown for Hudson, was it?
Yeah, so we shut down. We would host our event in Midtown, and then Automobile Alley and Film Row. And then the last year we were in Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. It was like super cool. And you learn all the like logistics of what it takes to shut down your a district for
Yeah,
24
that was going to be my
hours.
next question was like, then you're building relationships with the city to put this on and it's bringing people in and giving people an excuse and you got food trucks coming out. Like, it's not just a race and shutting down the street. Like, it's a whole event.
No, yeah, for sure. As for a while, I was over H and Eighth, at least what Wyatt ran with Pro-Am. And yeah, so you're talking to 20 to 40 food trucks and people to play like the little on the stage. It was a lot of fun, but it for sure is like it's a lot of work.
It's a lot, yeah.
It for sure is like all those events, anything that's like shutting down an area of the city, like you've got to go and get like permission from every one of the businesses that it affects. And if any of those businesses like have a problem with your event, you either find a way to persuade them to not have a problem, or you have to move. Like, because Oklahoma City is 100% approval, so like one person on one of our courses pretty much would mean the race doesn't happen there.
Yeah, and I guess that probably opens up your eyes into, you're bringing people to cycling and making people aware of cycling that generally don't come to cycle races, right? Like, you're putting on food trucks, you're closing the districts down, and that probably sounds like the first time that gave you like the sense of the community that's in Oklahoma City that might rally around something that they'd never come out to, but they see a cool food truck and they're like, oh, there's an event here, let's go check it out.
No, it's
cycling.
It's crazy to like talk to people who are like, yeah, we never heard of the Pro-Am, but we came out to H&Eighth and we wound up watching a bike race. Like, more people found us because of H&Eighth than anything we did promotion-wise for the event.
Yeah, and so that stopped because of COVID?
Yeah, well, sort of. Like, COVID's a good reason to, of course. We can blame it on COVID. It also was like a really expensive event. And most years it would turn into like maybe me and a couple other cyclists bailing it out at the end.
Yeah.
And so the last year we had pulled the plug right like a week before COVID shut everything down. We were like, the sponsorship dollars aren't there this year. Let's save our money.
Does that actually end up transitioning into kind of what the crit race becomes at Wheeler at some point? Or was that already going on as well?
So Wheeler started in 2014.
Oh, okay.
But dude, like Wheeler was, Wheeler then is not what it is now. Up by the Ferris wheel, there's like some busted up concrete
and
an old
airfield.
Yeah. That's what we raced on from 2014 to 2020.
Yeah. Where does the idea come for Wheeler Crit in 2014? How does that start?
So really how it started was back then, all of us Okies would travel down to Texas, and all of the Texas guys would be way faster. Like, Texas would have like 3 practice crits a week, plus racing on the weekend. So we only really got to race on the weekends.
Yeah.
And so it turned into one of those things where like, we can't drive to Texas. So if we want to race during the week, we're going to have to bring the race to us. And so we put Wheeler together more of like as a way to like, how can we get faster?
Yeah. As a necessity to try to compete with the guys from Texas.
And so like it was cool. Like at the time I had reached out to a few people, but I ended up reaching out to Blair Humphreys. And we kind of tossed some ideas around, and then the rest is history.
So what's awesome is one of my former professors and friend before he became my professor, because he was in the golf world, is Brent Levine.
Oh, right on.
So Brent's now in South Bend, Indiana, for work. But I remember him, like he really got into the cycling. And he would cycle before coming to class and everything. And I remember he was good. He was quick.
Right.
For his size. It's just because I think he's the first person that introduced me to you or made me aware of you. Because I think around the time I started the podcast, he's like, you need to talk to Chad.
Nice.
Because of what he's doing. So maybe he's listening to this one. If he is, appreciate you. He's awesome. His nickname on the golf course was Dr. Clutch because he chipped in once when we were playing a scramble tournament, which we really needed at the time. It's the only time I've ever seen him like really fist pump and celebrate because he's very stoic. Nice. Love that. But yeah, I remember him like he was big into the cycling, big into the racing stuff, and the whole team thing and competition. It seems like the scene really grew around that.
It for sure did.
Different teams popping up and
and Wheeler kind of led from we had a 3-year stretch where we had a pro cycling team in the city, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But like there's been lots of opportunity. Like everything took a decent amount of work, but it was really cool to be involved in a lot of things like that.
So when obviously like you speak to Blair Humphreys, you've got a connection to kind of Wheeler, and in the background as you're racing, you see these structures going up, and this, all this thing, and the big friendlies happening, and you kind of got the taco shop there, and it's becoming a community. Had you had any thoughts of owning a spot at that point? Did you have a bike shop in the idea in your head? I mean, take us to that moment with entrepreneurship.
So in 2012, that's the year I started my paint company.
Okay.
That was also kind of the year that I sort of like fell in love with coffee. But so like from 2012 to about 2018 or so, I got to know a lot of people in the coffee industry locally. And one day I got a call from somebody, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to own a coffee shop in Moore? We know you live in Moore. We know you love coffee. Do you want to own a coffee shop?" And I was like, "I don't know. Let me think about it." And they're like, "Well, you have 24 hours to make a decision." And so I call my wife, and I'm like, "Hey, what do you think? We don't have a lot of time to figure this out. Let's talk about it when I get home," type of thing. And it ends up turning out like, I know you'd really enjoy it, so you should at least give it a go. So I talked to those people. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm down." And that was Boxcar.
Okay.
So Boxcar was a coffee shop initially, and then what I ended up doing after being involved for a few months was I brought a bike shop side into it, and that sort of fell in place for us. Like, we knew we wanted to do it, but that was around the same time that like Schlegel's was selling to Trek.
Okay.
And Evan, who is our bike mechanic here, he was someone who I've always rode with. We sort of built the pro team around Evan. Like, he's like the son that I never had. And so like, he was at Schlegel's, and so I was able to like find a position for him at Boxcar and move him down there. And while we were there, that partnership sort of dissolved.
Okay.
But as it's dissolving, like, I guess instead of just like being okay with seeing it go away, I was like, all right, we'll just rinse and repeat. Let's do it again. And so we bounced around for a while, like temp space to temp space to temp space. And then eventually I found that the space that we had in Wheeler, Ashley, that was actually the Wheeler district office. And when I sat down with Ashley, she's like, "We'll move out. You can have the space." So we move into there, and then eventually grow into the Fit Studio. I have long-term plans for the district. I just need them to get a little closer to the river.
So where does the love of coffee start then? Because if someone's calling you, like one saying, "Hey, you want to own a coffee shop?" You must have your own machine at home, and you're like deep into, like you said, you don't do anything a half measures. So you're like all into the coffee scene by that point. But take us back. Where does it start, and why do you love coffee?
So in 2012, like, I did work for a paint company, and I was a general manager of that company, and then just out of the blue, I was let go. So like, I spent about 3 months after that trying to like figure out, like, get my life straight. Kind of watching like everything else you have like sort of fall apart. And in my head, I'm like, I'm never going to start a paint company. Like, I don't want it. I've built one. I don't want to do it again. But during that time, like, I stumbled into Elemental more like as a place of like, they had Wi-Fi and they had a restroom. And I'm not sitting at home at my kitchen table, like feeling like I'm not doing my job. And so I sit in there for, it ended up being like years. Like, I officed out of there for years. But like, it was just a place, like, at the time, like, it was a super low point in my life. And I walked in, and they greeted me, and they were cool, and everybody introduced themselves. And over the course of, a few weeks, it became more like a family than a coffee shop. And so when I had the opportunity to do it for myself, it was more of like, if somebody's willing to like offer me a safe place in a time that like I'm hurting, it would be awesome to be able to offer that to somebody else. And that's, Boxcar maybe was that, but I feel like more so this space is really that. Like, and it's even cool, like, our plans initially for this space weren't to be an Elemental shop. That sort of developed within the last year, and they kind of pitched your family. It was a no-brainer. As soon as they were like, "What do you think?" I would freaking love to, man. Like, you guys, like, not that I'm a great person, but I would not be the person that I am if it weren't for Elemental. Like, they will always be them and like the staff at the time, somebody that I owe a fist bump to all the time.
Yeah. It's more than just great coffee. There's
for sure.
Whole
It's like
backstory to that relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
So that just from there, I got to meet tons of people in the game. Then like everybody came out of Elemental at the time. Like, it's amazing. Like, if you look at coffee now, there's so many people that were like my Elemental alumni class.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see what everybody's doing and how they're still involved.
Yeah. I mean, they do great coffee.
For sure.
Right? And like I said, they're great people too. It's always fun to go there. And I think it's set up in that way too, with the long tables. You know, like, you're always going to be sat on a table with somebody. Right? And there's places to go where you want to be alone, and there's certain tables you can hide away in a corner, but when you walk in, you've got those 4 or 5 bench seats. So you're like, no, I'm going to be sat next to someone.
For sure. And from like 2012 to 2016, I just occupied like the back table against the window. There was an outlet there. I would just sit there all the time. And it got to a point, like with the paint company, that my accountant was like, you should be taking this money and renting an office, because you're paying for an office. And so then we moved. I moved from Elemental to an office there in Midtown Plaza, a few doors down from McNally's, which turned into a whole other problem. But it was good.
Shout out McNally's and Pint Night, right? Burgers and pints. That's really cool, and I love that kind of context. So people now, when they come here, they see the Elemental sign, and if they've listened to this, they know that.
Right,
There's
for sure.
not just like, hey, it's not just great coffee. Like, there was a backstory there, and they really kind of were there for you in the moment where you really needed it.
Right.
And just they didn't know who you are when you walked in, right, or what stage of life you are, but they,
No, you're just some
put a
dude
smile on
who's
their face.
sucking up their free Wi-Fi. But they were open to it, and it was cool.
Yeah. Which is what, I mean, when you look back at the podcast I've done with coffee shop owners in the past, like, it is just a place to foster that. Right? Yes, coffee's great. Yes, pastries are great. And you got bike shop attached to it, but it's the community around that. And it's a place where people can meet.
Right. Yeah, I think, for sure. The coffee is secondary.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing it for the people. Like, how can you build a community or help develop the community? Like, I love coffee, and the pastries are great, but no way, I just want to meet some people, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's kind of the backstory to the coffee side of things. Tell me then, when you move into Wheeler, and then I guess the cycle races move to around Wheeler, and it becomes a Tuesday night thing,
right?
Before it gets blazing hot, super cold, like, it becomes a real thing. And there's a lot of people out there. Like, it is a really people. I don't cycle. I mean, I do cycle, but not to the extent that you do. And I'm just like, I'm gonna come down and bring with the dogs and just watch. Like, it was entertainment.
Right.
So I would love to hear those stories too.
No, like, the district has been amazing, and it's been super cool for us, like, as an event, to go from racing around like the airfield to being in the district. Like, the airfield days, a lot of them would be me, or maybe me and another person out there at like 3 p.m. with a push broom, like, sweeping the course yourself. And then once we're able to move into the district, like, the district is totally behind the event, and they roll out with like their street sweeper, and they bring their own volunteers. Like, it's really cool to have them investing in the event, as opposed to just like, here's our streets. When are you going to be done? And the neighbors there, for the most part, have been fantastic. It's cool because you'll see people hanging out on their porch. Like, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the first ones I came down to too was like the first women's race too. So that's opened up too, right? It's not just a bunch of dudes in Lycra.
Right.
Like, the women's race was really cool as well, and you've opened that up.
Yeah, the women's cycling has been fantastic, and like the craziest nights in the district are like, show up on a kids' night. Like, it's crazy because you're gonna see like 100 kids on Striders. Like, it really is pretty crazy.
Yeah. So when does this place come about then? You mentioned you kind of bounced around a little bit, and you obviously, the model for this was kind of what Boxcart was, and you already, you got the idea in your head, it works. When does this building come available and you think, this could be the spot, and this is such a perfect spot?
So we, like as soon as the Boxcar partnership dissolved, we found the building. Like, we actually bought the building a long time ago.
Yeah.
It just took like 3 years to get us into the building. And some of that being like, some of it was done during the COVID time. So like getting things was tricky, or like all of your materials were way more expensive than you anticipated. So you kind of like waited them out. It had sort of been the vision for a long time. It just took a really long time to get here.
Yeah.
It definitely like exercised your endurance and your patience, and like for sure there were times where you're like, is this like really what we still want to be doing? But we knew like this has been the goal the whole time. It just took a minute to get here.
Yeah. So how does the building come about? Why do you decide to buy this building 3 years ago? Like, what's that whole backstory to this space? Because it is such a cool space, and I think you've done a great job of renovating it and making it yours. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about that.
Really, I knew I wanted to be closer to downtown.
Okay.
Through Pro-Am, I've got to meet like a lot of great people, and people have been involved in like developing other districts. And so we sort of had like the hunch that maybe Capitol Hill would be headed in that direction. And from a cycling standpoint, it's cool because it's like half a mile from the river trail. Eventually Robinson will have its own bike lane, so that'll be cool. And the building just has like a lot of character. The bones of the building are super sick. Anything we could keep original, I tried to keep original, because I would way rather see the brick and the plaster as opposed to like a gyp board.
You don't
wall.
get brick anymore, right?
No,
That's the thing.
like,
nobody builds other than Austin down at Wheeler, or doing cool things with his brick business. But
right.
Like, it's and also now to build a brick building is probably a lot more expensive than it was to buy this existing building.
But really, just those things. Really, like I remember just driving down Robinson, just looking for spaces that were for sale, and seeing the for sale sign on this and thinking, okay, that's it. This is the one we need to go after. Yeah.
And it happened, and like I said, you took 3 years ago, you've been building this process, and finally opened a few months ago?
Yeah, so the bike shop, the lease to the bike shop in Wheeler ended in February. So that's when we're like, okay, ready or not, the bike shop is for sure moving to Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
So we jumped over for the bike shop side then, and then the coffee shop we opened the 13th of last month.
Oh, wow.
So
fresh into it.
We're a whole month in today.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And
we didn't even plan this on our 1 month anniversary.
Well, I know we've been trying to do this for a while, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Timing's great. It all works out. Yeah, that's so cool to be in here for a month and have that. Talk a little bit about kind of like the bike shop and the bike community then as an owner from that side, and having that, and living out your passion and being more involved in the cycling side as the competition side of you has grown, but now you have a brand to represent when you travel to go to races. Like we have Mid-South, thanks to Bobby, in our backyard basically, right? And Stillwater every year, and we got Tulsa Tough as well, and all these other great gravel races, cycle races. You had the Ironman in Tulsa a couple of years ago. Like, cycling's a thing in Oklahoma. So what's it like as a business owner to have a shop, but also to travel with the name of your business on your back as a brand?
Really, I feel like because of DNA, we've sort of, for a long time, traveled with like a brand represented on our backs. The bike shop, it's interesting, I guess, because I never really thought of it. I mean, for sure, you're trying to like bring business in your door, but I feel like a few years ago, everything kind of transitioned in the cycling world from like a very results-based market. Like there were a time where if you were like seeking sponsorship, or even like when we started with the pro team, none of it was based on like what can you do within the community. It was all like, send me your results for the last 3 years, and then they're going to decide what level of sponsorship that is. And since then, it's kind of transitioned to more like a community-based approach. which I really like because like I'm average at best on the bike, but I'm like super driven, and I don't have any problem with like hard work. So focusing on a community effort is like, really, I'm better at that than riding the bike.
There's
like
more impact that way too.
Yeah, like I would just, and my personality is like, I can't just have one thing going. Like it's super boring. Like I need like 5 things going at the same time to think about any of them. So having like the bike shop, the coffee shop, a paint company, and we're putting on the Wheeler Crits, and you know, at the same time you're designing like t-shirts and kits, and you have people helping you with all these things. Like it's been cool, but like I feel like we've just, the people we have that come in the shop are part of our community. The people we're riding with, like, I don't really care what jersey you walk in here wearing. Like, you're still part of our community, and we're stoked to have you in here. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, when we first started, you're like, all right, we did DNA Racing, we did Arapahoe Resources, a pro team, we did the Pro-Am, and you do Wheeler, and you're like, we do a lot of things for the community. So you're like, all we got to do is unlock the doors. No, because like that's kind of just, you've done all these things, but like really, people are like super loyal to their people, you know. So like, just because we put on a bike race, that's not really like any guarantee that like these people are going to leave their shop to come to your shop, which I think is also something that's like very like underappreciated. Is like the loyalty people have like is fantastic. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't want somebody to just jump and ship.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like affecting everybody else's business. Like, as a small business owner, like everybody wants more business. Every like cup of coffee matters. Every tune-up matters. And so you want to like find your people as opposed to like poaching their people.
Yeah. Well, I think back to what you said about it changing from results-based to community-based. Like, in the grand scheme of things, no one cares how many races you've won, right?
No,
I mean, the community cares about the impact that you've had, and the way that the Elemental made you feel is sometimes the way that you hope to impact others. If they come in here, or if they come to the bike shop, or if they see you out on the street riding, or whatever it is. Like,
right.
That's what really goes a long way.
For sure.
Stuff that we remember, hey, like Chad and his team won, 4 out of 6 races. Or
I mean, the only person that's gonna remember that you won is you.
Yeah.
Like, and if you do that, you're doing it for a picture anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, let's talk a little bit about kind of the different styles of riding, the different kind of bikes, and how obviously for you it started in road bikes, but you've done gravel racing. We have mountain bike trails here. Like, tell me a little bit about that and kind of how that evolved for you personally, and then the scene as well.
So I'm more of a roadie, but then it's kind of interesting. Like, I feel like every time there's like some sort of like life switch or struggle, like I find something different. Like for me, full-blown roadie, gravel's not going anywhere until like I noticed a boxcar, kind of like some tension there, and then I was like, I got to find something to like get me excited again. Yeah. So then I started kind of jumping over to the gravel scene, which was cool because like nobody really, like some people knew me, but it wasn't the same as like a road ride. And so I got involved in like participating in some of like the G3 series, and met Ray and some of those people, and freaking just like fell in love with gravel and with that event. And then that's been a lot of fun. And then this year, with the shop doing what it's doing, trying to get it open, I decided I would give mountain biking a shot. And that's been even more fun and challenging because I can ride a bike really fast in a straight line, but as soon as you have me like throw some switchbacks or something in there, I'm kind of like in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So,
but that's the beauty of it, right? Like, you're continually learning and pushing yourself, and that's something that you're super driven. So regardless of it's jumping on a mountain bike to try something different, or opening up a coffee shop, or continuing the paint business, like that's something that just is ingrained in you, and it sounds like it's been ingrained in you from a very young age.
Sure.
I don't know anybody who's in construction that's lazy growing up.
So
that clearly comes from your family.
Like, for sure. I mean, that's my dad, he's going to retire this month, but he's always been like, he's got his job and he's got 15 side jobs going at the same time. Like, so I probably have him to blame for this.
And then everyone else has him to thank for this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Everything that you have in here. Talk a little bit about, I guess, the shop and on both sides and like local vendors and kind of, I know you mentioned the relationship with Elemental. I did see that Hicks Design has done some really cool stuff here and plan to have, is it Kyle?
Yeah.
I'd love to have Kyle on the podcast.
So Kyle comes in here one day and we're talking about finishing the building. And I'm like, dude, I'm like lost.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to finish the building. I was pitching him a pastry case.
Yeah.
I need some help with a pastry case. And then he's like, well, he like leaves here. And like within like 30 minutes, I have a sketch text to me. What do you think about this? And I'm like, I freaking love it. Let's do it. And he's like, what else do you need done?
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe these bars on the windows. He's like, okay, got it. He's like, what else do you need done? And I was like, what do you think? Yeah. And he like walks through here and he like tells me half a dozen things. Hey, these are things that we should do. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do them. And really in my head, I'm like, he does a lot of great, like amazing stuff. He's super busy. I'm like, we'll see. Like the patient, you know, and then like to see like him and his guys just show up and like all this magic happens. And there's still things that they're doing for us, but it's like, he was my elemental to get this place open. Like the time that I'm like, I freaking need some help.
Real neat.
He was just like looking at a pastry case.
That's
and he
amazing.
had no idea what he's really getting himself into because now I'm like, bro, I have an idea and I know you can make it happen. And he freaking makes all of them happen.
Yeah. Comes back to community, right? That's just the main center point of this is it's regardless of it's bikes or you know, any sport or not just sport, but coffee and pastry, it doesn't matter what it is. Like community is everything. That's what drives a lot of things.
And he makes badass wallets.
He makes really good wallets. He does. I'm actually, my one's getting busted at the seams. I'm going to have to get it at some point. That's small world. I absolutely love that he's kind of been sat behind me this whole time. I have no idea who you are. Talk to you soon. Yeah, I mean, you've got some really, it's a really cool design down here. You know, it just kind of fits and obviously the cycle side, but you've got couches in the cycle side too. Like it's a place to hang out. And I remember walking into your spot on Wheeler and there's just like 3 or 4 guys in there just hanging out.
Yeah,
right? So you've always kind of had that feel.
We've done a really good job of like staying true to like what we see the vision of the shop being. We are passionate about the community. Fortunately or unfortunately, I have the paint company to like lean on. So like the goal here really is like, I don't need it to like make money.
Yeah.
I need it to just sustain itself. So it kind of occasionally allows us opportunities to do things that like maybe other people wouldn't, because as long as like it's in the black, like let's freaking do some cool stuff. Like I'm down to do cool stuff.
Right. Yeah, because your decision making is for the long term rather than the short term dollar.
Right. Like for sure. And like I would much rather invest in the community, and like that makes me happy way more than like, I don't know. I don't need to make a couple dollars, but I need to make a couple friends.
Yeah. What's finishing up? Let's talk about some of the dreams right now for either the coffee shop or for like, you know, you dream to host a race in downtown Oklahoma City. Like what's on the dream board at the moment, or just kind of things that you'd love to work on, vision for in the future?
So potentially we bring Pro-Am back, or at least tossing around those ideas now. And that would be really cool. It's something that like I've missed, and I feel like right now the team we have behind the shop is pretty like well oiled. Yeah. Everybody knows what to do, and so to like take that team from like us doing it at Wheeler to okay, now let's do it like as the Pro-Am again would be pretty exciting. The opportunity for to purchase this whole building instead of being just a partner has kind of opened up, and so that's definitely like, how do I make that happen type of thing.
What would you put in here if you bought the whole building? Just scale what you already have, or anything else to it?
I don't know. Like that's like the problem is like
Yeah.
there are too many cool things with the upstairs. Like ideally, like by the time we actually say own it, the coffee shop's actually like rolling, and it would be a great place to maybe half of it or a quarter of it is additional seating. The view from downtown upstairs is pretty sick. So it'd be cool to like maybe that's additional seating, or maybe you throw that's an Airbnb.
Who knows? Yeah.
Maybe it's a co-working space. Maybe you lease half of it as an office. If I need to, the paint company can office out of there. You know, there are lots of like, how do we make it work type things.
No, that's awesome, and that's the beauty of like there's so many possibilities for it.
Right.
It's just which one you decide to go with, and if it doesn't work, then you go with the next one.
That's right. We just keep trying.
Yeah.
Eventually something will stick.
Yeah. What would you say to, last question, you got someone who, it seems like a lot of people love coffee, and there's a thing with coffee in the cycling community because Dustin Green also has a coffee shop and loves cycling too, which I'm sure you know. But for someone who's brand new to cycling, regardless if they want to jump on a road bike or a normal bike or whatever it is, like, what do you say to someone who maybe in their, let's say their 30s, because most people, if you see all the memes, you know, they get older, they either become really good at cutting grass, making coffee, or cycling,
right, for sure,
or running races, whatever it is. What would you say to someone who's starting out?
I would just say, like, have fun with it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Have a good time. Find a bike that makes you happy. Find a shop that you can make friends at and trust. Like, it's a bicycle. Like, it can be.
Well, it can be very intimidating when you see the scene, right?
I mean, for sure it is. Like, and that's like, find yourself, like, when you go to your first group ride, don't just like sit off to the side. Find somebody who looks like they're laughing or they're having a good time, and like mosey on over, because it's super intimidating. You're gonna roll up and everybody's gonna be wearing like super tight clothes. Everybody's probably on a bike that costs more than
most cars.
Yeah. But once you kind of like peel the layers back, like the community is fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. What's your coffee order?
An oat milk cappuccino.
There it is. Let's finish with that. Chad, thanks, mate. Really appreciate your time. Congrats on the new spot. It's awesome. Congrats on a month. We're 1 month anniversary. People listening, come down to Capitol CoOp on Southwest 24th and Robinson. And yeah, we'll see you next episode. Cheers.